Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast for July 27th, 2014. This is episode 75, and I'm JD Duran.
I'm Blake Bertuzit.
And I'm Dan Clark.
You're listening to the InSession Film Podcast. This is episode 75. As we learn in Lucy, people use only 10% of their brain. Blake, how much do you use?
Oh man, I know this. It's 1.5%. Yeah, I knew that.
Hello?
Yes, I have important information about a group of drug traffickers. I need to speak with someone in a position of authority.
Aha. You're very lucky there's no one with more authority in this office than me. What is your name?
Listen up, Piero Del Rio. Get off your desk, sit in your chair, pick up the red pen to the left of you, and take down everything I say. There are no cameras. Hurry up. I have no time to waste.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be sending you the details of 3 people about to arrive in Europe. Each one is carrying a kilo of drugs. I need you to arrest them and collect the substance. I'll need it for later.
What form are these drugs in? Bars, capsules?
Powder. Hidden in plastic pouches inside their intestines.
Excuse me?
Make sure to be careful when you remove them. The product is very powerful. Believe me.
All right, Lucy is written and directed by Luc Besson and stars Scarlett Johansson, Morgan Freeman, and other people that I don't want to try to pronounce their names, but still fun actors. I'll toss it to you first, Dan. What did you think about the movie Lucy?
Well, that is the question of the day, isn't it?
You're
I'll
right.
be honest.
I'm excited to hear what anybody else thinks.
This could be interesting, yes.
I'll be honest. I will get into it. We all kind of hinted that this movie is not at all what we expected, at least based upon the trailers going in.
Yes.
And honestly, it's still a movie that I am struggling with, and I've already written my review of it so far, so just to say that. But at the end of the day, I think it has a lot of issues, a lot of problems I have with. I think its ambition is rather high, but I think that ambition sometimes is overpowering its actual execution, and it doesn't stick the landing in a lot of areas. But at the end of the day, I liked it enough to recommend it. It's a movie that I think has a lot of good things going for it, but a lot of issues. We'll probably get into that. But
yeah, sure.
Though I was satisfied with what I wasn't expecting, I still enjoyed it, and I thought Scarlett Johansson was good enough in her part. I do wish she had more opportunity to really flex her muscle as an actress, and I liked some of the ideas that they were going with, and I felt as a director this was one of Luc Besson's most ambitious and unique takes so far, because he's usually like a straightforward point and click type of guy,
right? And
that's not like this at all. Though some of the heavy-handedness, some of the messaging I don't think was there. I think it lacked a lot of its own logic, and I think it's kind of, but it goes by the rules of a fantasy film, because I feel like things just kind of happen, and there's a huge conceit there you need to buy into, and if you can't buy into that, I could see why you would hate this movie. I was able to buy into it enough to overall enjoy my experience.
Or what about you, Blake?
I've been trying to kind of really contemplate and think about this and put it into words and find a way to best describe my feelings on it. And forgive my lack of a great impression here, but my absolute best way to describe my feelings about the movie Lucy is in a quote by the famous Peter Griffin, in which he just said, what? Mainly meaning, okay, we watched this movie together, JD. You know what my first reaction was when the credits hit here and everybody else behind me? I was like, what the F did I just watch?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, here's a couple of thoughts here. I honestly, I don't have a fully formed opinion yet. I was thinking, honestly, it's going to take this conversation for me to really be able to give it a grade by the end of it. But it didn't feel like there were like 3 acts like you normally get in films. It was like a half and a half, and the first half was one point, and then it totally switched gears. And like you mentioned before there, Dan, like without just really anything happening, just like we're expected to believe it. So it seems to me, again, like with Luc Besson, he's most famous for straightforward stuff like Taken, like that. It's like, he got halfway done with this movie and his wife or his girlfriend was like, you just do plain straightforward stuff. Everybody understands what that is. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to F your mind up here. I'll make something that nobody can understand. I'll show you.
Sure.
And that's kind of how it felt like it went. It was the beginning had, one through point here, and even like the acting and the emotions changed so much here. I liked a lot of the other parts in there, but what bothered me, I think, is that in the first half of the movie, all the simple things that are going on that we can easily understand, they over-explain and have Morgan Freeman, which we know he's best known for narrating things, narrating this movie basically for us.
Sure.
And like lots of cutaways to, stuff from the animal kingdom. And, like they every time something happens, when she opens up more, they have to flash on screen and tell you what % of her brain she's using. Like we have to really have a full-on, let's dumb it down for the dummies out there. But then when things really change, they don't explain anything and just leave it up to you to play along with it. And that kind of bothered me in a way. So, I mean, again, no, I absolutely, I didn't hate it, but I'm trying to really fully form an honest together opinion on it here. It was just way out there.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same vein as you guys. I think overall for me, this isn't a film that you can just take at face value. I think really in essence, this is very theoretical, it's philosophical, and very abstract, as you guys were talking about for this director. I do think visually it's really beautiful, especially towards the third act. I think there's some really great visual imagery that we get there. As you kind of touched on, Blake, there's some unique editing in this film that I think comes back to something Dan was saying, and that it just doesn't stick the landing, as you were saying. For me, a lot of that editing just really took me out of the film. And I don't know if that was 100% necessary. In fact, I'll just go out and say, for me, it wasn't 100% necessary because they are dumbing it down for the audience. It's like he's wanting to introduce these high concepts and these really intelligent elements, but then he's like, well, I don't think the audience can quite understand what we're doing, so let's just dumb it down for them and just spell it out what we're doing.
But it was the simple things that everybody could understand. At that point, when they
especially
go
at
and
the
overdo
beginning,
it, when they overdo it. But it's just
Yeah.
when they keep going with it and they stop when it gets to be actually more thought provoking.
Which told me that it was very intentional. I feel like he was trying to say something there because it was just way too obvious than to say, hey, this is what's happening in case you didn't know. Like, I think there's more to it, but to me, it still didn't make a whole lot of sense. And it just took me out of the film. I mean, when they're showing, what was it, 15 seconds of animals humping, I just didn't need that.
Yeah,
I understood what was going on, and I was completely out of the film at that point.
Well, it's like, there's an old phrase that if you're on drugs, stay on drugs. And if you're not on drugs, don't start doing drugs. And I think halfway through the making of this film, Luc Besson started doing some hardcore stuff. This was kind of the way it feels like to me.
You could argue that for sure.
I don't know. Sorry to interject, but yeah.
And I will say, I think the biggest thing with me that I'm still having to digest is it's just very different than what I expected. I didn't expect to have to think and digest it as much as we have. As we talked about, I came into this thinking it was just going to be this fun, maybe a little bit intelligent, but mostly action movie starring Scarlett Johansson. At least that's how they marketed the film to me.
That's what they sold me.
But it's very much not like that. I think my tweet afterwards was this might be the biggest budgeted quote unquote art film I've ever seen or pretentious film I've ever seen. But I do think that one of the strengths of the film, despite its execution, is it does provoke a lot of interesting questions that I just didn't expect. But I do like the fact that they do provoke that. I do think some of those elements are really fun. And I love that Besson he has this theory, he has these ideas, and he just goes for it. And I like that. At least I respect it. I don't think the execution is there, but I at least like the idea of him going, I have these thoughts, I'm just going to go for it. And he does. And for that, I give him a little bit of credit anyway.
I do think a lot of that imagery is meant to be humorous, at least in the beginning. Like the cell getting attacked by the cheetah. I felt that was meant to be humorous. I think he was more of a wink than, hey, look, I'm trying to be clever. But read a lot of the intercutting, like you said, the barrage of animals humping. So it felt like either a bad joke or just taking it a little bit too far.
Yeah.
I think also my bigger issue too. I mean, we all know the whole 10% of your brain thing is kind of, a myth and not true.
Right.
And it's okay. That's not true. That's what it's using it as. It's saying like trying to link it to saying how a dolphin has echolocation, that makes it okay for Johansson to be able to, or Lucy to be able to manipulate.
For the entire version of our podcast, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or on Stitcher, or check us out online at InSessionFilm.com.